Hello, today is the lecture that continues from part one of the adult lecture. And last time, let's see if I can do this. Last time we had talked about some conditions that affect food and eating. And so we stopped at xerostomia. And stomia means mouth, and zero means dry, like xeriscape, right? Some people in Texas, you know, appropriately landscape their yard not to require a lot of water, right? But dry mouth is an issue that can affect so many older adults. It's not a normal part of aging, but it really does matter if it happens to them. So what the causes can be is they can have an autoimmune disorder, which the rate of which increases as they get older. They may breathe through their mouth more for a variety of reasons. They may have, their noses may be plugged up, or it may just be that they've become less less muscle tone in their face, right? It could happen. Certain medications, I don't know if you've ever taken, the only ones that I've taken is pain medications before, and they do dry out your mouth. So what that does, we'll talk about this, but if you have a dry mouth for whatever reasons, including hypothyroidism, the effects are, they can be really big in terms of affecting food consumption and how much you enjoy it. And if think about it, if you didn't enjoy eating, what if it was dinner time and you got some food and it tasted bad, but you needed calories? You might, in your eating response to hunger, you probably eat enough to not be too hungry. But what if you're not that hungry? All right, and here's your food, and you're just like, yeah, I don't really care. So I think this is what older adults are faced with. So because of the dry mouth, you put food in your mouth, chewing and salivary glands aren't working so well. Chewing and swallowing doesn't work so well. And with a dry mouth, the teeth are more likely to experience decay. And this is because it's dry, the bacteria do better at the teeth. And I'm going to throw in COVID here and say, I bet there's a whole lot of older adults that haven't been going to get dental care because they're afraid to go. And so these problems are going to become more profound or more important to them as during the next year or so, even though it looks like we may have functional vaccines in the spring, right? Life could get better soon. Anyway, what happens if you have a dry mouth? Well, okay, we talked about this. Another thing is candidiasis, which is an infection, yeast infection in the mouth. Dysgeusia, which has to do with the not tasting the foods. And dysphagia, which is difficult in swallowing. So a lot of the pleasure in eating goes away. So what do? Moist foods. And in institutionalized situations, sometimes they'll make something, they'll make sure there's a lot of fluids with the meal and make sure that they're moist. And then they won't serve as many dry items. Okay, so sugarless candy is one thing because it can stimulate saliva production, but you want to be careful as to how much you offer. Does anybody remember why? Kind of a personal question. Has anybody chewed a whole box of sugar-free gum? Ever? What's in there instead of sugar?
Is it sugar alcohol? Sugar alcohol?
Sorbitol?
Sorbitol, which is a sugar alcohol. What's wrong with why can't we just eat a bunch of sugar alcohols?
It gives you diarrhea.
Yeah. So worse, I don't know which is worse, but it can cause a lot of gas. Okay, so if people are eating sorbitol and all this kind of stuff, and there's these diabetic candies in the store, and you can eat them and go, oh, it's not going to raise my blood sugar. The problem is the sugar alcohols get into the small intestine, and since we don't digest them so well, they're just in there. Remember we learned in food science how sugars attract water? It's one thing. So the sugars can be in there, it can attract water, which can cause diarrhea. And another thing though, those sugars, although we cannot digest them, bacteria can. So picture, I know you've done this a million times in your classes, picture a small intestine, like a little section of it. And in there you have sugar alcohols that are pulling in water because they're not digested. And bacteria are going, oh, this is really good. And then basically farting for you in your small intestine. So what happens there is there's an increase in gas production. So this is not a perfect answer just to suck on sugarless candy all day and eat, you know, whatever, because it can cause discomfort. Nobody really likes excessive gas, but especially older adults because things aren't moving so well, so it can be very painful. Okay, continuing on this very, yeah.
They also have like, they have sprays that you can use for dry mouth. So like just an oral, like topical spray basically, and that will help like produce some saliva and also keep your mouth from getting too dry.
I don't know anything about that. Tell me about it. Is this a clinical thing?
You can buy it over the counter. I worked in the dental field for a long time, so I know a lot about mouth stuff, but you can buy it over the counter. They have stronger, more effective ones that you can get like prescribed through like a dental office. But yeah, you could buy it pretty much anywhere. But it really does help a lot, especially a lot of people that have like suffered from dry mouth.
Oh, that's fabulous. Thank you so much.
I've noticed with a lot of the patients at mine, especially like during times when they were going in. I'm sorry?
No, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
No, this is one of my favorite things about working with students, especially when people have these kinds of experiences, because I don't know this. You know, that's very cool because other conditions, people taking cancer meds and things like that, sometimes chemotherapy can have that. So that sounds like a very good clinical solution. Thank you. Okay. Continuing along we talked about this, but older adults, it sounds horrible. You have a lot of power to have a good life, but if this stuff is going to happen to you, your lifestyle can help, and genetics can help you determine how long it's going to take. So first, best case scenario for me is I live a vibrant life until 80 and then get struck by lightning, but we don't always get to choose that stuff. So tooth decay. This is so common, and you guys, the thing about this is there's not really insurance that really takes care of teeth, really ever. I think it's because dental work is so expensive. So in the United States, even if you have medical insurance, they'll pay a little bit for tooth problems, but if you have to have teeth, root canals and all this kind of stuff, that runs in out of pocket. So they experience tooth loss and decreased quality of life. Tooth decay is just pretty awful. This gets worse with age, low income, low education. You can see that a lot of people have untreated decay and compared to higher income people. And I actually know a couple in academia, they're long gone. Both of them were in a university setting, and they had neglected their teeth for several years. And when they went to get them checked out, one of them had to have so much work, it was $20,000. And they had to take out a second mortgage on their house. So what you want to do is take care of your teeth. I don't know about you, I'm not going to the dentist right now because I'm more afraid of COVID, but get in a habit for your whole life of going twice a year, get your teeth cleaned, get them checked out so that you can avoid these kinds of issues. Some people die with a full set of teeth. Some people lose their teeth early on and have to deal with all those things. But being toothless in low income, low education, and smoking. So this matters because how's it going to be if you don't have teeth? How's diet going to be? Right? Somebody comes to the hospital. Some people go to the hospital. They often don't bring their teeth with them if they have dentures. They don't bring them with them, and then they can't eat anything. Okay, so that's important. So with dentures, people have to avoid certain foods. And these foods are often those fibrous foods that are so healthy for us, like fruits and vegetables. And so carrots, all the things that require a lot of chewing, kale, broccoli, you can have it if it's really mushy, but they're not doing so well with dentures. So they need their foods cooked pretty well. That's what Meals on Wheels and more, when they make meals for older adults, they're all smushy and easy to consume because a lot of people have dentures. So if you're doing an assessment on someone and they have dentures, then what you want to do is pay attention to their diets because they may be low in the consumption of certain things. But dentists are just expensive. Medicare doesn't cover it, and prevention is worth everything. I had a mother-in-law several years ago many years ago, had just a couple, 3 teeth left, and they were infected. She was in chronic pain. And so, I showed up in her life and I'm like, let's go to healthcare. Let's take care of this. And so they took the rest of them out. She was very old. Took the rest of them out, gave her dentures, and then her pain went away. So some older adults may be living with pain. And if you're living with pain, telling them to eat broccoli doesn't work, right? So this, in terms of working with older adults, you need to pay attention to what are your teeth like? Okay.
Before we move on, we had a question on how big of a role does genetics play in tooth decay?
I have no idea. How's that for a progressive answer? I always say that and then I come up with stuff that I've seen great varieties in dental health in families. And throwing one thing out there, a younger child may have more issues than, like say a woman has 4 kids. Every pregnancy is going to use up her minerals and and her body stores. So it may be that some of the younger kids have less calcification to start with, but I'm just making that up. In the interest of let's enjoy learning. Okay, how's this plate look to y'all? Does it look pretty good?
No.
Why not? Do you not like peas?
It looks like dog food.
What part, the green part or the other stuff?
All of it. It just looks like it's out of a can of dog food.
Yeah. What do you think's going on here?
You probably can't chew. Maybe.
Yeah. So people that have trouble swallowing, the things we take for granted, even in my advanced age, people take for granted is the ability to chew and swallow food. Think about this. You get to have pizza and you're like, I don't care about the health of it, but man, this is really good. Whatever, we enjoy so much about food. A beautiful salad, whatever. If you have trouble swallowing, then all bets can be off. And there's a variety of reasons that people can have trouble swallowing. And this is really who's in a lot of these institutions, because people may be able to live at home or with family as long as they can take care of themselves, at least go to the bathroom, at least eat. But if they can't eat, you can't take care of them anymore. They need to be institutionalized. Or you need to become very good at making things like this. What this is, these are shaped foods. Okay, it looks like peas, and I don't know, I'm a pescatarian, that doesn't look anything already anyway, but peas and something, just some Spam, I don't know, probably, and mashed potatoes. But in reality, these peas have been pureed and then formed into this ball and then frozen this way. And so this plate, all of the foods are like this. This is some, processed flavor component, and then these are not real, but they make them look real. So because out of kindness, I guess, because who wants to go back to eating what looks like baby food? So anyway, why do people get here? Central nervous system disorders, strokes, Parkinson's. My father died of Parkinson's. He was about 80 years old, and his ability to chew was not okay, or swallow was not okay. And that's gonna accelerate death. And then the dry mouth makes a situation, but now we can all squirt it. Anyway, so who helps with swallowing? So this dysphagia is difficulty swallowing. Who helps with that in the healthcare world? It's the speech pathologist. Okay, it's one of the healthcare providers that's in the community of healthcare provision. I saw this during my internship a really long time ago, but imagine someone that's in a hospital room and they're in a bed most of the day. They're institutionalized and not doing very well. They may have reduced mental capacity, but they're eating, or the family wants them to continue to eat no matter how they're doing. And I'm not going to get into all that except saying it's complicated and difficult. But what they'll do if someone's and people, as they get older and closer to death in an institution, will start to kind of curl up into fetal position because their muscles aren't being stretched, right? And so they'll kind of slowly contract. So you have somebody in bed and you need to feed them. So what they'll do is they'll get them in the bed, sit them up, do the thing where they sit up 30 minutes before, and then they provide different types of consistencies, pureed foods like we have here, thick liquids, whatever, avoiding things that are choking hazards or problems, and then have a relaxed environment. So people this far along have trouble and need this type of professional intervention. Anybody have a thought here before I move on? Okay, if anything, does it make you want to take care of your teeth? Right? Watch your teeth. I think people don't do that a lot, especially when you're young, because it costs money. But a tooth going south, needing a root canal, is a whole lot more expensive than a tooth that, is a whole lot more expensive than any of your other options. So take care of your teeth. Okay.
Dr. Chriselle,
Yeah.
on the question on like whether tooth health was like genetics or not, I'm pretty sure genetics plays like a pretty like big role in it, because I actually have a twin sister.
Oh, cool.
So we like take exactly the same care of our teeth and like same dental care. And I have had so many like tiny little cavities, and I actually had like a root canal at the beginning of this semester, and she has like almost perfectly healthy teeth. So it's like,
So wait, is she an identical twin?
no, we're fraternal.
Okay. All right. So you're saying, yeah, twin studies are fun. So you're saying because you're the same family and you've had the same environment. Yeah. See, the thing is, though, that may be true, but I'm just going to throw out what researchers do. And they go, in order to prove, you can't prove anything, in order to have strong feelings that something's true, you have to have a randomized controlled trial where you divide people into two groups, and they're similar in as many ways as possible. And then one group, we look at genetics, but then we also have different protocols, or maybe everybody brushes their teeth the same way, and we do this study for like 20 years. Then we can look at genetics and go, is there a genetic predisposition for this? But the problem is, even if you're eating the same food as your sister and brushing your teeth the same way, you're probably not, especially as adults. You'll do that for a while when you're kids, but even as kids, some kids are better at taking care of their teeth and others eat candy in the middle of the night. So I don't know. So I'm sure there's a predisposition, but I'm not smart enough to really answer that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that does.
Yeah, the main thing is just be careful. So you don't get the replacement teeth aren't nearly as fun as your original ones. Okay, so food intolerances. This is when people feel bad after eating. I have my grandmother from a billion years ago. I remember her. She would say, I can't. This is Palette is in the Panhandle at the time, so it's Texas, northwest Texas. I can't eat that. I can't eat that. So all these things she couldn't eat. And they were corn and this and lettuce and whatever, and all these things. So she felt uncomfortable after eating certain things. This stuff wasn't gonna kill her, but it may make her feel bad. So when you're working with older adults, pay attention. If they go, I don't eat cabbage because gives me gas, I feel bad, then don't, when you're writing out a meal plan, don't put cabbage on it, you know? Take a list of things that they have discomfort with and give it to them. It's not like we're all going to die if we don't eat cabbage, right? So some examples of food intolerances, lactose intolerances. Well, you're all familiar with that. You learned that at the very beginning. Some people can't digest milk, the lactose in milk, and they can have a small dose, but any more than that causes trouble. And there's some vegetables that have components in it that lead to gas, and we have this list. This is a real common one. And some items are better cooked. So older adults, they don't need to have a crispy salad. They can have boiled mashed carrots and broccoli. And, you know, in my generation, where the way that my grandparents did, they would cook this stuff all day. We're going over for Sunday dinner, which was maybe at noon. And they started cooking food about 8 in the morning. So they had these pans going all day. So by the time you went there and had your carrots or broccoli, they were basically looked the same as that first slide that had the shaped foods, right? So, but don't be against this, because even though we think, well, it should be fresh, they can chew this and there are nutrients still left. So honoring people's food intolerances is a really good idea. Okay, this is something we talk about in introductory class and kind of pull this thread through. Diverticulosis is the condition in which there are outpocketings or pouches on the colon. You can see the anatomy of them right here. And these pouches can become infected. So diverticulosis means you have these little pouches. Diverticulitis means that there's inflammation going on in these pouches. It can be from pathogenic bacteria. So people often know if they have this. It's something that occurs more frequently as you get older in Western societies, because, you know, the Pop-Tart diet does not work for 90 years, guys. The sooner you get on this bandwagon of eating real food all the time, the longer you're going to be able to avoid and maybe forever avoid these things. It's one of the reasons, a lot of times when people are young, they think, well, I just want to worry about my weight. But these organs, all this kind of stuff, and your muscle tone and this, and your bones and your teeth stay with you the whole time. So what you want to do is take care of everything, not just your weight. And so what that means is eating a healthful diet, eating real foods. Diet filled with fiber and real foods is less likely to result in diverticulosis. But when people have it, they can experience erratic bowel habits. It can be uncomfortable. And if they're inflamed, it can be really bad. So people that have inflamed diverticulum in their colon can be in extreme pain. And that pain, you know, it's a medical nutrition therapy situation where if they're sick, then they need to be cared for. If they're normal and they're not sick and they don't have an inflammation, eat a diet with a good amount of fiber and so on. But if they feel pain and inflammation, then oftentimes the recommendations change. Now it's time to calm down, maybe take some Advil if you can, eat less fibrous foods and let it relax. But this situation can be really painful for people. I've known people that have had you look at this little section here, I've known older adults that have had this removed because the pain was so great. And so, you know, prevention is a good part of this. Any questions about diverticulosis?
So is it uncommon to have it at a younger age, like 27 or so?
It can happen, you know, it's just less common. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so this is, nutrition you learn. If you've had Miss Brasfield's classes, she always talks about it's all about the poop. So she gets that off the concern. And because the study of nutrition is the ingestion, digestion, and elimination of foods and all the things that go around that, getting it out is just as important as getting it in. And diet can certainly affect constipation rates. So this is the most common GI issue. Look at this. 70% of people over the age of 65 are constipated. If you want to invest your money in something, I don't know how lucrative it is now, but a long time ago, probably coming up with a new laxative would be a cool thing. Okay, because it's probably really expensive. So let's take a look and see what constipation looks like. So this one, I think looking at these diagrams makes you think differently about what you're eating, what you're doing. Okay, so here's what happens. If someone's constipated, then they can have a hard stool right here. Probably, and forgive me for being graphic, but if they could stick their finger up there, they could probably feel a hard stool, like a plug, okay? So and it depends on how big that plug is as to whether or not it wants to come out. If the plug is pretty big, this person can have lots and lots and lots of peristaltic contractions that go nowhere. Okay, and so they may have fine consistency up until here, and then they're plugged. And so every time their colon wants to contract, you eat breakfast or have your coffee, whatever, you have this, what's a stimulus for a mass movement. So it should like get things going, and then it stops right here. You do this for a while, then this plug gets bigger. It can get so big that people have to go to the emergency room because they're in excruciating pain. They go to gastroenterologist and they'll go in and dig it out. Okay, they'll do I know, I'm cheering you guys up. Lifespan has always been really fun, especially at the end of the semester when we talk about a worst case scenario, but people, they have to go dig it out. And they teach people, look, here's how you need to eat to not have this happen again. And you guys, it's not always the food. There's also, some people are just predisposed to having a cranky, my term, cranky colon. You can't use that on your chest, although Kristen will probably accept it. But there's predisposition to it because she's wonderful. There's predisposition to having this, and then there's other things, our diet and our lifestyle and stress and medications and all these things. So irritable bowel syndrome, I think there's a pretty good number of majors in nutrition that come in because they feel discomfort. I've been doing this for a really long time, and people bring it up all the time. They go, I just heard, I can't figure it out. And so, I talk to them about it and go, what irritable bowel syndrome is. It's a syndrome that you get designated when nothing else, there's no other cause for your discomfort. You feel abdominal discomfort because of your colon, and it hurts and hurts and hurts, but it's not cancer, it's not this, it's just, this isn't working well. So what I think of it as with irritable bowel syndrome, let's think about your transverse colon, okay, which is the colon I show. I usually in the class I show, it's the one that goes across stuff. Right, so your colon is like, comes to the small intestine, goes up, and then comes around, right? So you have a transverse, it's a transverse of your body. So it's, and so what can happen is instead of our peristalsis working in the same direction, so you eat and it goes the right way, and then it keeps pushing everything out. People with irritable bowel syndrome, sometimes instead of the peristalsis going the right way, there'll be like conflicting contractions. And so people just have this like, oh, wow, it won't come out. It's just here and I feel uncomfortable. Okay. So irritable bowel syndrome is like that. And there's probably a lot more literature on it than what we're talking about, but a lot of people get into nutrition because they're trying to figure this stuff out. So if you have this and maybe disorganized peristalsis, that can keep stuff in the colon. If you keep it in there long enough, it's going to be hard like this. If you can poop it out on a regular basis, it's not going to be so hard, and then you're not going to have a backup. But once you get a backup going, you got to be careful. So in neurological damage, where the urge to poo doesn't work anymore. Thyroid, diabetes, depression, changes in diet, dehydration, pain meds. Pain meds will stop it cold. That's what this is. This is showing you, this is a small intestine going to, it's a beautiful diagram. Large intestine, and you see how impacted it is. People that take pain medications on a regular basis, that just basically interferes with peristalsis. So instead of everything moving out in one direction, it just sits there. And if you sit there for a while, then it's like this, and then you get a plug, and it's dehydrated, and so it's a problem. So what can we do about it? This is you know, I apologize, but I consider Miralax. Now there are other drugs that have the same component, which is polyethylene glycol, like CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, whatever. They'll have their own brand, but they put these in, they put it in containers like this. And see this cap here? There's some white powder in here, which is polyethylene glycol. And this is poured, this cap provides 17 grams. It's poured into a cup of fluid. A hot cup of fluid is a better idea. Cold, you can taste the graininess. Warm, a warm thing like tea or something, you don't even know it's there. Now this product, what happens is when people consume it, it is hygroscopic, so it pulls water into the gastrointestinal tract and keeps it there. So instead of that stool getting mean and hard and impossible to pass, it stays hydrated because this stuff pulls in water so that when the urge to go happens, it can slip through and go out. Okay, this is a product that we now has been approved for very young kids that have stool eating, stool holding problems because it just makes the whole poo thing more soft, so it'll come out. Doesn't cause diarrhea. It's not a laxative. It doesn't cause painful contractions. So the worst thing that can happen for somebody, if they have this, and you don't pay attention to the fact that there's a hard, mean stool in there, and you say, well, look, let's just take a laxative. Or even, hey, you should start eating Raisin Bran. Here's a cup, okay, or a full bowl. What happens is you get this urges coming upstream here, and this is still a plug, and the pain can be really bad. But if you take your time, have them gradually add this product to their diets and then increase bran in small amounts, and then start adding this can solve the problem for many people. At the same time, we need exercise because exercise causes contraction of the gastrointestinal tract and causes the muscles to move better, and that improves elimination. All right, any questions about this? I know this isn't probably the sexiest lecture you've ever had in your entire life, but when you become or are taking care of an older person, this is pretty critical information.
I have a question. Are laxatives and stool softeners the same thing?
Man, I'm so glad you asked that. So, no. Okay, there's several different products out there. So a laxative, you got to look at the label and read to see what it says to do. But many laxatives stimulate peristalsis. Okay, so let's say you just didn't go for a day or something like that. You take a laxative and it stimulates peristalsis. So you go a whole lot the next day and I'm not done with that. That's fine. But let's say you were someone like this, where your colon was impacted or here. And then your first line of defense is to take a laxative. What will happen is this will cause all this contraction up here, and this contraction, it won't come out. So extreme pain, sweating, just misery. Okay, so laxative increases peristalsis. The only way that's okay is if we know the stool is soft enough. So for example, and being a very old person, not that old, I'm young old if you look at our definitions, but I've had colonoscopies for several years because you should. And if you have healthcare, you should start having them around the age of 50, right? So when they do this to prep you now, it's gross. To prep you though, everything's gross. you stop eating, I don't know, 6 o'clock the day before, and then you get a big volume of water and you pour like even a full bottle of this in there. So you've got something that's going to pull in all this water and to create like very liquid stools. What they're trying to do is clean out the colon. So to do this, and now it's even more fun. So instead of the night before you do it, and then you also wake up at midnight and do it again. And then they have you take a laxative at midnight and then at 4 a.m. So once you put this in there, the stool is soft, so it'll come out. And then with a laxative, it'll force it out. But it works because the stool is soft now, so then they'll do that. So the laxative works as long as the stool is soft. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. What was your stool softener? This is, let's see, it says soften stool, but there's other products that have, say, stool softener, and they have a different mechanism or something, but they can also make the stool softer. I just talk about this one because I think it sounds gross. This sounds like you're drinking, lighter fluid or something, but I've looked at the literature on this, and there's a lot of literature that indicates that it's pretty safe to take this product, and it helps. The literature really supports it. Okay, the last slide, and I'm going to give you time. I'm going to stay on if y'all have questions, but let you also bug out if you want to start working on your written response for the AMS indexer. So, so the last thing here is fiber. The DRI for age over 51 is here, 30 and 21. Here's what people usually eat, because we live in America and we eat Pop-Tarts and white bread, okay? And don't eat spinach and all this kind of stuff. You can easily get plenty of fiber if you eat a whole foods diet. What matters is you feel better, and if you're used to doing it, then this whole thing about constipation really doesn't have to happen at all. And also, but let's say you're going from ground zero and you've been one of the people that has the impacted colon here, and you're going to change up. Eat whole foods, add them slowly, add more fluid. Sometimes people just don't drink enough water, okay? But the ideal is you eat a whole foods diet your whole life. But this is how to help people, older adults. Okay, so that's the end of the lecture. I promised that I'd give you part of class. I can't see you all. Let me see if I can figure this out. Oh, there you all are. I told you I'd give you, I'm gonna stop recording if I do that. Okay. That would give you time to work on your ASM indexer written response to that. So I'll let you go now. Go ahead, I'll stay here, but go ahead and work with your partner. Feel free to just log out and I'll work together. Oh, wait, this is an individual response, never mind. So go ahead and just log out and work on it if you want to, but I want to give you time so you can go ahead and get that uploaded on time. Hi.
I had a question.
Yeah.
So our response was very brief. So is there like anything like, do you want us to respond on emotional response, or is it like the tags? Because I'm just confused about
What are you asking? I'm not sure what you're asking now.
Okay, so my response for our video was like very brief, and oh no.
I heard that, but I didn't hear the rest of your question.
Oh, so what would you like us to respond to specifically if our emotions, like it just said like we had 6.7% joy in our video,
Yeah.
and nothing else.
That's
And
exactly what mine said too.
Okay, so if nothing else, then think about it, because what you could do is go, well, what could I have done differently? If I wanted joy to be there, if I wanted this to be there, how could I have potentially changed the video? So it's a process that allows you to think about what you did. We could leave this whole thing out, but it wouldn't allow you to reflect.
Okay.
And so reflect, there's no right or wrong answer. What's a wrong answer is no answer, or
Okay.
not thinking about it. So just think about it and go, you know, here's the thing. Some people do animations and like, well, emotions didn't show up so much. So that's okay. Just write about that. Just looking for some really good reflection. That's it.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Can I just stay back and talk to you?
Yeah. Who's that?
Okay.
Jesse?
Jesse.
Sure.
Yeah. I was really just gonna like comment on your discussion earlier before we started class. Like,
Yeah.
I was so upset by that email on Monday.
Tell me, please.
Yeah, I was upset that like he was intervening like that. I thought that was really inappropriate, and I feel like we're already.
Okay, so you noticed it yourself?
Yeah, I went. Yeah, I was talking to friends outside of school, and I was just like, this doesn't seem right. Like I feel like I'm already being shorted by not being in person and doing like in-class stuff and hands-on stuff, and just because of COVID, and to like have any assignments reduced, I think would be shorting us completely from like our registration. So
thank you for saying that. It's so hard. It sounds like you get this, but we don't do this assignment stuff to be mean. We want you, why would we? It's work for us to create them. It's work for us to grade them. If we just didn't care, we would go, look, you got 3 tests. I'll see you on Friday, right? But we don't do that. We try to come up with assignments that help you actually learn, apply what we're teaching. And so thank you. It was, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not vulnerable. I've just been here a long time. So I'm cranky because I feel like I understand education, and I'm kind of a jerk, right? So I'm an advocate for my colleagues and my students. Honestly, that's how I go. So I felt like for people that are doing everything they can to provide these opportunities to teach, and then have someone go in and go, well, grade them easier and give them extra credit. That doesn't help, right? It doesn't make you learn more or be happier in COVID. Am I right?
Right. It just, especially because it wasn't specified to anybody, it was just like for the whole school. I was like, I mean, anybody I feel like in this department would know that like all the nutrition faculty are like looking out for us in all ways that they can. I know if I had any problems, I could go to any of y'all and talk about it and we'd work something out, but like I would still know that these assignments are my responsibility to like learn the information. So I don't know, it just really bothered me.
Thank you. That's our dream, and if we ever aren't clear, I have never known anybody to get back up about it. I have known, all the time if somebody says something legitimate, like, this wasn't clear, I'm like, oh, wow, let me make it more clear, because it seems clear in my mind, but if it's not clear to you, then I need to fix it. And all of my colleagues, I feel like they're so dedicated. And so, but man, we're accredited, we're externally accredited, and your knowledge base you're in a healthcare profession. We may not be frontline people, but some dietitians are right now. They are making a difference in life and death in COVID patients. So did we want to give them an A in lifespan or some other class when they weren't doing the work? What are we doing? Sorry, I can get on this high horse for a while. We want you. We care. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jesse.
No problem. I just wanted to point that out, that it wasn't just y'all, I guess.
Thank you. Well, we got a tad cranky. I know you can probably imagine that.
Yes. Alrighty.
Anybody else up here want to talk? Well, I see a few.
I had a question about the video.
Okay.
Do we have to list our references in our video project?
No, somebody else asked me that. If it doesn't say something, you don't have to do it. But in the final submission, it does ask you, what are your references? So there's a checklist. When you upload that, you do want to put that, because there's a question that says, what are you basing this on?
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and the idea here is that you did a lit review first. So you're right, you're making a video based on the homework that you did and the literature review you did. So what you're doing is you're pulling through your understanding of current literature into your video. And so the idea, the whole world right now doesn't seem to understand, not the whole, half the world does not seem to understand evidence base and the value that understanding that what we say should be based on what we think actually works based on science. So we want you to, nutrition is founded upon the shoulders of people that have worked for decades to figure out what's the best thing to do. So we just want to make sure you understand that. So that's why your research paper has references and why we want you to harken back to that on your video. Because let's pretend like you did the video on the first day of class, because that would be a ridiculous assignment. And we said, okay, a week from now, make a video on how to feed kids fiber, or some, I'm just making things, dairy, whatever, first feeding practices, whatever your assignment was. You wouldn't know how to answer that because you haven't done the homework yet. And that's why you're different than people walking the streets right now that have opinions about nutrition, or they've had a kid and they think they're an expert, or people that eat and think because they eat they're a dietitian or something, right? You learn to look at the literature and then make a video or a lecture that's based on what the science says. So you will not do harm. You will instead provide evidence for families that could make their lives better. Does it make sense? You can say no.
Yes, it makes sense.
Thank you. Anybody else? Everybody's quiet. All right, you guys are great. Go work on your written assignment, get it done so it's not hanging over your head. Thank you.